Whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, write down what you're thinking. And then ask yourself if it's true. And there's a whole process in the book to not believe every stupid thing you think. And then when you go to say something to your wife or at work, does it fit? There's an exercise actually in all of my books, basically called the one-page miracle on one piece of paper. Write down what you want. Your relationships, your work, your money, your physical, emotional, spiritual health. What do you want? I think everything starts with what do you want? And then, does your behavior get you what you want? So for example, with my wife, I want a kind, caring, loving, supportive, passionate relationship. I always want that. I don't always feel like that. Sometimes I'll get a rude thought in my head. I'm having a bad day, or she's not great about closing cabinet doors. And I've come to believe I would so much rather have her in this house with the cabinet door open than have her not there. So I let it go, because being a jerk doesn't fit the goal I have for my marriage. But it starts with telling your frontal lobe, so that's the front third of your brain, largest in humans than any other animal by far. This is what makes us human, but you have to tell it what you want. So over time, you match your behavior to get what you want. So it starts with that, and then does it fit?
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and learn the 7 science-backed ways to heal your mind and keep it healthy. Enjoy.
I love that idea of telling your brain what you want, especially if I'm talking to an entrepreneur. They don't know what they want. So they have like a vague idea, but they don't really know the specifics of what they want. And my thing is, if you want to get somewhere, if you're really trying to accomplish something, the amount of hard work, of practice, of learning that you're gonna have to do is really pretty extraordinary. But if you're not aiming that at the right thing, then you're never gonna make progress. And so everything that you're trying to accomplish in your life has to be so clear that it boils down to something that you can do right now, today. Do you have a process for people for that? Is it as simple as just writing it down? Like, how do you walk people through the idea of getting that level of clarity in their life?
So I have virtually all of my patients start with the one-page miracle on one piece of paper. And so as we do therapy over time, does it fit? You know, does the food you're eating, does the thoughts you have, do your relationships fit ultimately your purpose? And all good businesses have plans. They have business plans, and they have goals, and they have quarterly priorities and so on. But very few people ever do that for themselves. And when I first did it in 1986, I think it just helped me so much clarify, because, you know, Amen Clinics and BrainMD are 2 companies. I didn't even imagine it back then, but it's consistent effort over a long period of time. You end up doing something special.
You've written so many books on the topic, given so many talks, and the shows you've done on PBS. I mean, this is a really big topic. How do you help people that feel overwhelmed, that don't know where to start, they don't know how to keep going? How do you give them that entry point?
Well, that's why I write, you know, and that's why we have 8 clinics. We want to coach them through it. And people go, oh, I can't afford to come to the clinic. Well, get a book, you can get it at the library. There's so much free things online, because our goal, if we're really gonna end mental illness, the end of mental illness begins with a revolution in brain health. I talk about this concept, if I was an evil ruler, how would I create mental illness in America? We are creating it in America by the food we serve, by the news that is everywhere, sort of the toxic pit you against me, news cycles, social media, letting kids hit soccer balls with their head, having Girl Scouts selling poison.
You're talking about cookies, I assume.
Cookies, yeah. And last year alone, nicotine use among teenagers went up 36%.
Whoa.
So Juul, is
The
an
vaping
evil
company.
ruler strategy. It's, yeah, I mean, they have bubblegum flavored vaping devices. That's directed at children. Hello. We need to be more thoughtful.
Way number 2, optimize your sleep with Matthew Walker.
You wrote a book called Why We Sleep. And I'm always worried when I'm bringing somebody on that's covering a subject that I've talked about before, if they're going to hit it in a new way. And I loved your book. You come at it from a totally different angle. I wore my brain shirt out of acknowledgement of how much you talk about sleep and the neurological impact. And so I want to start with 2 things from the book that really blew my mind. And the first is that sleep is so important that the Guinness Book of World Records will not let people try to set records for sleep deprivation. Walk us through why not. I think this is a great entry to your world.
Yes. So what we know is that a lack of sleep will impact just about every major physiological system in your body and almost every operation of your mind. For example, if I were to take you and limit you to just 4 hours of sleep for one single night, there is almost a 70% drop in what we call natural killer cell activity, which are critical anti-cancer fighting immune cells. That's after one night of 4 hours of sleep.
That's crazy.
Secondly, if I were to short sleep you for just 1 week, your levels of testosterone would be that of someone 10 years your senior.
Define short sleep. How many hours are we talking?
So here we could be talking about 4 to 5 hours a night for 4 or 5 nights in a row, which if you look at the data on the survey, that's not unusual for perhaps even 20 to 30% of the population, certainly during the week. We also know from daylight savings time that it doesn't take very much, because there is a global experiment that's performed on about 1.6 billion people across 70 countries twice a year, and it's called daylight savings time. Now, in the spring, when we lose 1 hour of sleep, we see a 24% increase in heart attacks the following day. Yet in the autumn, in the fall, we see a 21% decrease in heart attacks. Now, you collide all of that information together, as well as the impact on the brain, the mental health issues regarding anxiety, suicidality, depression, as well as increased risk for Alzheimer's disease. And we've been seeing that as well. All of these things created this perfect storm for Guinness to take a step back. They used to recognize world record breaking attempts. And to put this in context, several years ago, a remarkable individual, I think his name was Felix Baumgartner, an Austrian, with Red Bull, he went up in a space capsule. He went to the outer edges of our atmosphere, of our planet. He opened the door, and then in a spacesuit, he jumped out. He hurtled back down to Earth at over 1,000 kilometers per hour. He broke the sound barrier with his body. And Guinness says, that's just fine. However, sleep deprivation attempts no longer, because they are that much more concerning to your mental, your physical, and your cognitive health.
That is the perfect explanation, like that dichotomy of Felix Baumgartner versus just not getting enough sleep. And I don't think it's a mistake that the Navy SEALs use just catastrophic sleep deprivation as a part of their Hell Week to really find out who's got the mental resilience to make it on the other side. Because when you're talking, if I remember right, they get 3 hours of sleep over 5 days or just something stupid like that.
It's remarkably minimal. And they start hallucinating. I've had a friend who was in the British version of that. And they were saying, they were running around on these hills during sort of these combat training events. And they were just seeing sort of gravestones popping up in front of them. They were just delusional and hallucinating.
What's going on? What is it that causes us to hallucinate? Do we know the mechanism, whatever breakdown there is between the conscious and subconscious mind? I'm not even sure what's happening.
Yeah, what we think is happening is that after some degree of sleep deprivation, you build up this pressure for the different stages of sleep. And one of the 2 main stages of sleep, of human sleep at least, is something called rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep, which is the stage that is principally associated with dreaming. And what we've learned is that once you start to go through sleep deprivation, and including REM sleep deprivation, the brain gets so starved of this thing called dream sleep that it just simply says, look, at some point, I've got to get this thing called REM sleep. And if you're going to stay awake, I don't really care. I'm just going to produce this state of REM sleep. And so it's almost as though you're awake, but the veil of REM sleep dreaming comes over the brain. And therefore, you're essentially dreaming while you're awake. And that's why you start seeing these hallucinations and delusions. That's our current understanding.
One thing I heard you talk about is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which I found very interesting. And I know so little about it, but knowing what I know about cognitive behavioral therapy in terms of pattern interrupting and things like that, is this like us sending a sort of subconscious signal to our brain? Like, how does that work?
Not quite. So what we know, obviously, has been the rise of sleep difficulties in society. And that has been matched by, unfortunately, a rise in pharmacology and particularly sleeping pills. And I say unfortunately not because I'm anti-medication. And I know a lot of people who work at these pharmaceutical companies, and they're good people, great scientists wanting to do good things. But unfortunately, sleeping pills are largely blunt instruments, and they don't produce naturalistic sleep. They're in a class of drugs that we call the sedative hypnotics. And when we take sleeping pills, we mistake sedation for sleep, but it's not natural sleep. And in fact, sleeping pills have been associated with a significantly higher risk of death as well as cancer. So much so that in 2016, the American College of Physicians made a landmark recommended intervention. They said that sleeping pills must no longer be the first-line treatment for insomnia. Instead, the American College of Physicians said it has to be cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. That must be the first-line recommended treatment for those sleep problems. And so cognitive behavioral therapy in general really tries to target two things, cognitive and behavioral. And so the cognitive aspects for insomnia are aspects where we try to correct your beliefs or your misbeliefs around sleep and some of your ideas around sleep. Some of those things that can be either inappropriate, incorrect, or just triggering anxiety or worry. So we try to modify those cognitions, those beliefs. But then we also look at what you're doing in your life, the different behaviors that you're doing or things that you're not doing, and try to correct the behaviors as well. For example, how's your caffeine intake? How's your alcohol intake? What time are you going to bed? What time are you waking up? What's your chronotype? Are you a morning type, evening type? Are you sleeping in harmony with your chronotype or against your chronotype? Are you getting daylight in the morning? Are you getting too much daylight light at night, artificial light at night? Do you exercise? And so we change behaviors and we change thought patterns. And together, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is just as effective as sleeping pills in the short term. But what's great is that when you stop working with that clinician or your online program, and I should say that I work with a company, I'm an advisor to a company called Shuni. It's SHUNI.io if people want to go and explore it. And you can get cognitive behavioral therapy online there. But you work with your therapist, and after about 5 or 6 sessions, you can continue that benefit of improved sleep for up to 5 years, the studies have demonstrated now. Whereas with sleeping pills, when you stop their use, then not only do you go back to the bad sleep that you were having, you typically go back to even worse sleep. It's called rebound insomnia. And now you have to go back onto the use. So you become dependent. There is an addiction dependency cycle. So that's really what CBTI is. And that's really the best approach for sleeping problems right now.
All right. So I have 2 sleeping problems. One is that there are times where I will get either really stressed or I'll get really excited. And I have a very easy time falling asleep, but then I'll wake up after 3 or 4 hours and I find it very difficult to fall back asleep. And then the second part, just so I don't forget, is sleep inertia in the morning. But what can I do to optimize for staying asleep?
Yeah, so there it's a case of trying to deal with that sort of downgrade the activation of the nervous system. The reason that people typically wake up in the middle of the night and can't get back to sleep, not always, but often, is because they have this sort of stress relief, they're carrying this anxiety. And anxiety biologically is the principal mechanism that we think underlies most insomnia. And what happens in part is that the fight or flight branch of the nervous system becomes overactive. And that's exactly
why
the
does
opposite.
it shut down? Like, I find it so easy to fall asleep, but I can tell on the nights where I'm going to wake up.
Yeah.
It just seems
And
weird
the
that
reason
it
is
dips,
because,
but then my subconscious mind kicks it back alive.
yeah, why would it be that way? And the reason is because after about 16 hours of wakefulness, you've built up a lot of that healthy sleepiness, what we call sleep pressure. And the longer that you're awake, the more of that sleep pressure builds up. And it's a chemical that builds up in the brain called adenosine. And then when we go into sleep, it's the time when the brain can actually start to clear out that adenosine. And it starts to lower the sleep pressure. And after about 8 hours of sleep, you've cleared away 16 hours of that adenosine, of that sleepiness. And so you wake up naturally and you feel refreshed and restored. But what will happen is that you can be stressed and or excited, but the sleepiness, the weight of sleepiness pulling you down is so heavy at that point that you can get to sleep. But then 3 or 4 hours later, you've jettisoned maybe 50% of all of that adenosine, maybe even more, because it principally happens during deep sleep. And so now your brain is much more vulnerable to those awakenings because it doesn't have the weight of that sleepiness. Does that make some sense?
It makes total sense, and it makes me want to punch myself back to sleep.
Way number 3, master your breathing with Lewis Howes.
It's all about mastering your breathing. One of the most powerful tools for keeping our minds in a calm state is something we too often take for granted: our breath. If you're able to control your breath and connect with it during times of stress or anxiety, you'll be tapping into a super effective strategy for emotional regulation. There are 1,000 different breathing techniques out there, so I encourage you to explore them and see what works for you. But today, I'm going to dive into 3 specific breathing practices that we can all use when we're feeling anxiety starting to kick in. And I learned the first one from Stanford professor Dr. Andrew Huberman. And when he was on the show, he demonstrated what he called the physiological sigh. This technique helps bring down the levels of carbon dioxide in our blood. It is actually the same type of breathing that we engage in when we sleep. The pattern is a double inhale through the nose, usually a long breath, followed by a quick, shorter one, and then a prolonged exhale through our mouth. Now, it might seem easy, but the science has shown that it really works. And in fact, Andrew's lab found that our carbon dioxide levels can be significantly brought down in as little as 1, 2, or 3 physiological sighs. This is because the long exhale sends a signal to the heart to slow down, which helps lower anxiety and leads us into a calmer state. So here's an example. 2 inhales in, and then a sigh. Do that a few times and see how it feels. Another method comes from one of my friends, the Dutch daredevil, motivational speaker and crazy Iceman, Wim Hof. He actually demonstrated his famous breathing technique to me in person a few years back on the channel, and you can watch that full session if you want to. But this technique usually takes a few minutes or more to do. So I won't demonstrate the entire thing for you in this episode, but I encourage you to write it down, what I'm about to tell you, and give it a try. First, you want to get into a comfortable position, either lying down or sitting down, and be comfortable. You want to clear your mind, then breathe in fully and exhale deeply. So you're going to breathe in, and you're going to repeat this 30 to 40 times. Now on the last breath of that set, you blow the air all the way out, and then you hold your breath. You hold your breath until you need to take a breath in. You inhale through your nose until you feel your chest fully expanded. And then you hold for 15 seconds, and then you start again. You exhale, and then you start again. And I remember, I'm already just getting sweaty just doing it a few times. I can feel it in my body really start to activate. And I remember when I did this for the first time, feeling so at peace and relaxed after I did it. You can do this a few times through, and it'll really start to feel it throughout your entire body. But you want to make sure you're relaxed and in a neutral position. And the third and final technique is what's called box breathing. It's called this because you do the exercise in counts of 4. To get started, get an upright position or a seated position, empty out your lungs, and then slowly inhale for 4 seconds. So exhale your lungs, and then you inhale for 4 seconds. You hold your breath for another 4 seconds, and you blow out for 4 seconds. And you repeat the process again and again. So it's 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. Repeat the process. And similar to what the psychological side does, box breathing helps clear out the built-up carbon dioxide in our bodies, and then it puts us in a more relaxed state. So I encourage you to try these breathing strategies if you haven't already. It really will help you calm your mind, calm your body, get into a place of peace so you can think more clearly and let go of the stress that you might have in your life.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Way number 4 is heal your emotional trauma with Dr. Rahul Jandai.
The brain has the ability to heal from trauma then, physical and emotional trauma, because I feel like the emotional hidden trauma can be more painful and harder to recover for some, the psychological, emotional trauma, than the physical trauma. You can see it and you can treat the physical trauma in a sense, but depending on how intense it is, but the emotional, psychological, hidden traumas, I feel like are invisible and people don't think they need to treat it because they don't see a broken arm and say, I need to go to the doctor because my bone is sticking out, let me put a splint on it and heal it up. We're not trained that way.
There is no easy answer.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that trauma, these are my concepts. I'm not.
Yes.
There's therapeutic trauma, and what I mean by that is resetting a bone after it's broken, the pain of a cancer surgery, but then you know that your cancer's been cut out. Like that's good pain.
Right.
And we're just talking about physical trauma.
Yes.
Then there's emotional trauma if people are attacked. That's also intimately connected to emotional trauma, right? So the people who don't have memory after certain injuries or operations, they never have PTSD because they don't remember it. So the emotional context and memories related to trauma, be it emotional, physical, or a combination, requires memory. That's cool, right? I like to think about like just as a concept. I don't have a solution for. Don't do these 3 things, you'll be better. Sort of not my approach, because when people did that with me, I was like, how do you know what I'm going through, man? You look at me, you think everything's good. Are you sure? Are you sure I wasn't attacked last night? Are you sure I didn't find out that my patient didn't do well last night? Are you sure I didn't find out that a loved one was diagnosed with something? You know, like I just don't want to put people in boxes. In fact, I want people to know that they are new every day. I'm not even the same version of myself I was before the last few years. How can I be understood as a group of people, a man or a surgeon? You know, I just want people to think of each other as individuals and dynamic. That said, I never judge people's trauma to be better or worse. People are looking or stronger or justified. They're looking at, everybody's going to have a traumatic event in their life, whether it's a car crash or hearing. It's unavoidable. It's partly because we put ourselves out there. It's partly because the way we approach the world is to be completely adaptive, right? If we're rigid, then there's less chances for trauma, but that's a life less well lived. So when you put yourself out there, traumatic experiences are unavoidable. Right. That said, okay? So that said, yeah, you get a bruise.
What I want to hear you say is that if we don't have the memory of the traumatic event, we don't have PTSD. We don't have trauma.
Right.
We don't have a trauma detail.
Right. So that's the concept that I want people to walk away and say, memory is important, but memory is the thing that determines whether the event remains traumatic in your
whether
heart
it's
and mind.
painful still for
Very
you.
good. So let's get into that.
So we just need to heal the memory of the trauma.
This is exactly where I'm taking it. Very good. So memories are not files in a cabinet. And actually,
in the brain. How is memory categorized?
Again, there are some regions that if we remove them, you would lose memory. But memory's not only there; it relies on pulling from memories of smell to new. Like, for example, smell is very interesting. It's one of the 5 senses that we can't tamp down with our thinking. So the perfume or cologne, smell and memory are intimately intertwined.
Wow.
And so you're pulling from all different parts of the brain. Again, memory is a certain electrical flow in the brain. But it's malleable, it's moldable. Just because you have a certain memory today doesn't mean that experience, good or bad, will remain good or bad. Our positive vibe right now can be made negative. Our negative vibe right now can be made positive as we look back at our day to day.
Really?
So when you see memory that way, then you say, okay, wait a second. I was attacked, or I was hurt, or something really traumatized me. And when I think of it, when I smell that smell, when I see that color, I'm traumatized again.
I clench up. I have stress, a fear, anxiety. Yeah.
So the emotional context to a memory is what you can change. You don't want dementia. You don't want to delete the memory, because that's a different problem.
Yeah. You don't want to block it.
You don't want. Yeah. But what you want to do is change the emotional context attached to that memory.
What happens if you hear this from people a lot who might have been traumatized as kids, where they kind of block the memory, and then they remember
when it resurfaces,
it's still
raw.
It's very raw,
Yeah.
but they've stuffed it, they've blocked it, they've numbed it, addicted it, whatever you want to call it.
Driven it to addiction. But
yeah, exactly. So what happens when...
I don't know. I don't know about the kid stuff as much, because that's a different space, and I don't want to, I want to stay where I feel real comfortable with what I've been reading and learning. So emotional context to memory for adults, in the right setting with the right person, through, they have their techniques, you can actually work through the trauma of the memory and the experience by going to certain therapists who help you get better with that.
To process the memory.
Yeah, just to take the emotional pain, right, the emotional trauma, and dampen that. So you can say, for example, I was, I'm just bringing examples from my world. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when I was diagnosed with cancer, that's a traumatic event. And then you see my patients, you see them over time through different ways. When they say I was diagnosed with cancer and I did this, their face is different describing it later than it was immediately after receiving the diagnosis. So through that's a real life example, right? I'm not. Yes. It doesn't have to be all the stuff, related to violence and all that.
Sure.
The traumatic experience of a cancer diagnosis and how patients cope with that immediately, and then you see them months later, years later, because I'd be a mess, right? I'd be like, okay, I wouldn't be able to cope. But they, surprisingly, not some of them, most of them cope. They get dressed, they come in for their 3-month scans, which to me would be a traumatic experience every time. Is this guy going to tell me it's back or it's bigger? I mean, think about getting that thing in your mail or email. Like, I got to go in for this news again. Yeah. But somehow they cope, and that's where in Life on a Knife's Edge, I learned so much from them that it's possible to cope with traumatic experiences. I'm not saying you as an individual can. I'm not saying I can. But when you look at a group of cancer patients, and most of them cope, live, move on from very traumatic emotional experiences as well as physical experience of cancer pain and cancer surgery, right? That's the lesson I want everybody to go through in their mind when they're dealing with their own challenge.
Wow.
Way number 5, meditate with Robert Greene.
I know recently you had a stroke, and the way that you're approaching it has the sort of Milton Erickson written all over it with rebuilding yourself, but with a writer's mind. And so you're paying attention to what it takes and what you're going through. Yeah. Walk us through that. Like, what are you learning about that? What principles of the book are you applying to it?
Well, so if I talk in the book about overcoming your own nature, damn, man, that was slammed into my face, right? I had to overcome my frustration, my lack of patience, my willfulness, the fact that I always have to do things myself, and then I had to confront the fact that I could easily have died, but I didn't. I'm alive, so I can learn from this. I'm learning a lot, and I'm going to rebuild my body. I'm going to rebuild it. I've come a long way, so like a month ago, I was pretty bad. I'm able to walk now fairly well. In 4 months from now, I'm going to be swimming again. In 6 months, I'm going to be jogging. I'm going to be back to where I was. Nothing will stop me. But I have to overcome all of my deficiencies and all of these weaknesses that I have built up over the years.
Yeah, that is, needless to say, that's a long, difficult road. How do you, or what tools do you use to reset your mind every day as you're going through this, and paralleling that maybe to the Chekhov story in the book, and how what he overcame, it was really extraordinary, being beaten by his father all the time, and that he goes on to be the guy that isn't bitter was pretty extraordinary. What mechanisms do you use to reset every day?
I meditate every morning. I've been doing that for for 8 years now religiously. And in those meditations, I confront myself. So I'm sitting there meditating, and my meditation is all about emptying the mind. But it's impossible to empty the mind. So as you're meditating, thoughts come to you, anxieties, worries, resentments. I've trained myself to question where they are. Each time I feel anger at my sibling or my mother or friend for saying something that I misinterpreted, I go, that's your ego speaking. These people weren't saying something that was personal. You just have your ego, which is always getting in your way. Question it. So question my impatience, my frustrations, etc. The meditation has really helped me.
Way number 6, build a tougher mindset with Dean Graziosi.
Life can pull us in a lot of directions. The craziness of the outside world can allow us to forget about our dreams, or find imposter syndrome, or lose our confidence, lose our drive, lose our desire, lose our focus. We get overwhelmed on not knowing where to start, and then we don't start at all. All those things happen, they're life. Add in 2.5 years of COVID. Now add that we're going into an economic winter and inflation high, which is gas and food, and all the prices are high. We add that we're in a polarized time in history where it feels like everybody's trying to push us apart when we're trying to come back together. Anybody feel that way? Wouldn't we rather all just get together and find our common ground? The media and the world want to tell us how different we are, but I think we have way more in common than everybody's telling us. And if we all were exactly the same, wouldn't that just be a boring world, right? So we're in this time of a couple of 2.5 years of COVID, and then we go into a place where now we're in an economic downturn, recession looming. I think by July 1, they'll officially announce we're in a recession. If you ask anybody, we're actually in it. And I was in business for myself in 2009, or in 2007 when we went into a recession, but I was also in business for myself in 1999. Who remembers the internet crash, right, of 99? I was in business then as well, naive, and didn't even know it was a thing. By 2007, I understood it more and had smarter friends, and we made transitions and shifts in advance, and we were able to thrive through that shifting time. If I was just starting in business, if I wanted to shift my life, my income, my success, my happiness, my joy, what would I like to learn? So that's really, I'd love to say that there's more thought to it than that. We need this connection. We need to be plugged in. We need not to forget what our dreams are. We need not to let imposter syndrome be in control of us. We can't let the inner self-doubt say, play small, especially now. With the world shifting, I just want to tell you, this is not a time to sit on your hands. I did an interview 2 or 3 days ago with Tom Bilyeu. I don't know if any of you have ever seen Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu on YouTube. He's really good. Dear friend, he's great. He interviews wonderful people. He's really smart. So I took my kids with me. I had a couple podcasts. I went and saw my friend Brendan Burchard, and then I flew down to go see Tom Bilyeu, and I brought my older kids, my 13 and 15-year-old, and let them see what their dad does. I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. And as I was talking with Tom, and talking about where the world is going and the shifts happening, I'm going to use the real estate space as an example. When the economy shifts, interest rates went up 0.75. All of these things affect, and if you're old enough to understand, there's a bigger byproduct coming, right? The housing industry, there's no way it can't be affected. It's coming, right? But when you're in an industry that's been booming for 10 or 12 years, and if you're in the mortgage industry or the housing, if you sell houses, if you build houses, if you build if you're in it, the last thing you want to do is face it and go, no, maybe it's a little hiccup. Oh, this will happen quick, right? And we get a little amnesia to the way it used to be. So instead of saying, no, it's going to be fine, if I truly care about you guys, what I want to do today is help prepare you, help anticipate, not make it worse than it is, but not make it better than it is. You know, when things change, when it's scary, when something new happens, what is it we always talk about? Flight or fight, right? We got the flight or fight mechanism. Tom Bilyeu said something I never heard. He said the third F he thinks is even more relevant in today's world, and that's freeze. That's freeze. That's what I want you to think about today. That was my notes here. My team puts together nice cheat sheets for me, and I write all over them so much and so sloppy I can't read my own writing. But what I wrote was the 3 Fs: fight, flight, or freeze. With all the crap that's led up to this recession, this inflation of 2.5 years of COVID, where COVID did things like made us realize, screw that job of me going in every day and not being with my family, not doing something I love, being unsure, missing, screw that. I'm out on that. 82% of people right now want to quit or leave their job to do something new or do their own thing. Never before has it been. The worst it was ever prior to this was 48%. And that was a couple decades ago. So 82% of people are like, COVID made me realize. Maybe you went through a little hardship, but with that shift comes uncertainty, right? And then all of a sudden you slam into gas, the highest it was, and inflation, and now you're like, should I not buy my house? Should I wait to buy? Should I wait to sell? What should I do? Should I invest? Should I take my money out of the stock market? Is my 401k gonna go away forever? Should it go back? Should I take it out and sit in cash? But if I do that, they say cash is trash. So if I sit on cash, it's trash, but if I leave it in the market, it goes down. Right? And all of a sudden this uncertainty builds, and if uncertainty builds, more than I've seen in my 53 years on this planet, guess what happens? Freeze. I don't know if I should do my self-education industry. I don't know if I should do anything with investment. I don't know. And when you feel that way, you freeze, you sit on your hands, you do nothing. This is not a time to freeze. In fact, this is a time to thrive. This is a time to gain capabilities, because most people are going to freeze more than you know, and we're not there yet. If people smarter than me, where we're going I get the chance to have great conversations, more and more uncertainty will climb, confidence will go down, and more freezing will happen. So if everybody's standing around frozen, what happens if you're the one that can build a tougher mindset, that you can anticipate this, you can prepare this, you can actually get momentum, this is your time to grow. In 2007, 8, and 9, when the world crashed, and I know I've shared this with you guys before, when the world crashed, my real estate education, self-education industry grew faster than ever before, and I ended up owning the whole industry. Going into 2007, I was one of about 7 in my space that were big. By 2009, I was the only one left, and our company, my brand, had got to almost $100 million a year. We were doing almost $2 million a week in sales. By 2009, 2010, we grew like this because the world needed us. And I wasn't selling how to get rich at that time. I was selling people how to secure themselves and be safe and do a deal or two every other month to make enough to get by. I said, if there's other people out there who could tell you how to get rich for doing nothing or rich overnight, then maybe you should try them, because that's not me. And that message resonated, and we grew like crazy. I believe this is not, what I hope to do today is to reframe your mind to really know Things are going to get tough for a lot of people, but this is your time to exponentially grow. This is your time to step in the next level leader that you have living inside of you. This is your time to crush that self-doubt even more, crush it harder, stronger than you ever did before. This is your time to get rid of the old stories and craft a new one. This is your time to realize that most people around you are gonna freeze or run or go backwards, and you have to be that leader to be the example for your family, be example for your friends, help those that need help. And when you start looking through that lens, when we change that mind, we could say, I'm sorry it's coming, but bring it.
Way number 7, eat for your brain with Jay Shetty.
In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 things I consume daily to keep my mind and body healthy. A lot of habits and techniques that are healthy for us take some time to develop. But if you're one of those people who's sitting there going, Jay, I don't have time to learn how to do something new. Jay, I don't have the space to add anything to my life or my calendar, then the tips in this video are going to make a difference in your life. The first thing I consume at the beginning of the day is a cup of tea. I find that tea has this unique ability to start your day with stillness. There are so many benefits to having a cup of tea in the morning: stress alleviation, immune system support, and detoxifying. It all starts with the process of heating up the water. Now, I'm old school, I don't use a kettle. I was always taught to heat up my water like this on a stove. And for me, this is where the mindful process begins. From filling it up, to watching the water, to watching it heat up. Once the tea is poured, I take a moment to inhale the scent. This is such a mindful and meditative practice. If you're someone that struggles with being in the moment or meditating, this is a great way to start. Start by looking at the color of the tea, then by inhaling and taking in the beautiful scent, and then taking a sip. I promise you, it's an experiment in presence, and you'll be so engaged and so involved that you'll recognize what it feels like to live in the now. This is one of my favorite ways to start the day because my mind is at ease, it's calm, it's peaceful, and at the same time, my body feels like it's getting this warm hug and that I'm feeling the energy all across my body. One of the things I really struggled with for many years was bloating in the morning. I found that no matter what I ate, whatever mixture or choice I made left me feeling heavy and bloated. My health coach Mona Sharma recently put me on chia seed pudding. Now, I didn't know what to expect in the beginning, and it has made such a huge difference in my life. Not only is it tasty and light in the morning, I don't feel bloated at all anymore, and it's worked wonders for me. Chia seed pudding provides high-quality protein, and it lowers the risk of heart disease by reducing blood sugar levels. Studies show that chia seeds have a high amount of fiber, which slows the absorption of sugar in the blood and can decrease blood sugar levels. Recently, I learned that chia pudding is also great for bone health, so all around, it's been a great replacement to the usual oatmeal or porridge or cereals that I would have in the morning that were high in sugar. One of the other challenges I had for a long time was that after my workout, I felt so dehydrated and so tired. I would have to get on with my work day, but I'd often resort to feeling lethargic or lazy, and I tried for a long time to figure out why that was. This changed recently when I started using Element. Not only is it one of my favorite things to drink, I end up feeling so energized and so rehydrated every single time. I usually put a packet of it into a glass of water after my workout, and the electrolytes make a huge difference to my energy. As I said, I used to struggle with feeling lazy or lethargic after an intense workout. Now I feel rejuvenated and nourished and can take on the challenges for the day. Element has had a huge impact on my focus levels and energy levels, and I carry them around wherever I go. Element has been shown to regulate blood pressure, improve energy levels, and it helps muscles contract, including your heart. For a limited time, my community and followers will be able to claim a free Element sample pack, and you only have to cover the cost of shipping, $5 for US customers. Go to drinklmnt.com/J. Now, I'm being really open and honest with you about the changes I've had to make because of how I feel. If any of you have high inflammation, you've had indigestion, you've had acid reflux, I struggled with many of those things for quite a while. And again, I tried a lot of things. Finally, I discovered celery juice. This really got added into my routine in January 2020. So I've been doing it for about 18 months now, and I promise you it has changed how I feel. It's removed that inflammation, it's removed that negative acidity, and now I'm able to just feel so much more clean and fresh. Every time I finish having some celery juice, I almost feel like my insides have had a shower. Celery juice has been known to reduce inflammation, boost hydration, and provide beneficial antioxidants. You can make it at home if you're someone who feels comfortable in the kitchen, or you can pick it up at a store. Either way, it's had a big impact on my health, and I think it will on yours too. Usually by mid-afternoon, I start to feel a little bit of slump, maybe I'm feeling a little bit tired, and I've found that I've tried a lot of snacks to get that energy boost back, and sometimes they're full of sugars, sometimes you're getting that high but then that dip, but one of the ones that has really helped is plain old nuts. Now, since I was a young man, my mom told me, and I believe this is a old Indian tradition, that if I ate 5 almonds a day, I'd have a really good memory. Now, I'm really grateful to have a really, really good memory. And so, of course, my mom takes all the credit for feeding me 5 almonds a day. And I also added 2 walnuts per day. Now, if you look at a walnut, it's shaped like a brain. And I was told since I was a kid that if you eat walnuts, it'll be good for your brain health as well. So for me, 5 almonds a day and 2 walnuts have been huge. I've also been recently adding Brazil nuts. I found that nuts are a fantastic way of finding that energy boost, but still staying healthy. Walnuts and almonds are a super plant source of omega-3. They promote healthy gut and improve blood fats. I really hope that you're going to experiment with some of these ideas to hopefully help you feel better throughout the day. Whether it's finding more energy, reducing stress and inflammation, or whether it's just about feeling better at the beginning of the day. Now, I use the word experiment because that's what you have to do. What works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for me. But the idea is that I'm hoping to share insights that will give you an opportunity to try out something new, to try out really simple habit changes that can have a big impact on your body and on your mind.
Sadhguru, you mentioned that you can do 14 different activities at a given moment. So we all are very curious to know how can we achieve such prowess over both body and mind?
Oh, whoever said this, I didn't say anything like that. Anyway, do you have a liver?
Yes, I do.
Functioning?
Yes.
Do you know how many levels of activity it's doing right now? What the liver is doing is far more complex than what your brains are doing right now. Do you know this? A brainless liver, if it can do so many things, a brained Praneeth, how many things? No, I was only talking about not activity per se. Yes, activity is also possible. So you must understand this. On a round planet which is spinning right now, hello? Are you on a round planet? Spinning? Most people don't understand this unless, they get sozzled out with something or they get some ailment. Suddenly you see, planet is round. Do you know how complex an activity it is for a human being to walk at a certain latitude on a round planet which is spinning and which has magnetic forces working upon you all the time? It's an extremely complex process. You ask a child who is, let's say, 1 year of age, he knows how complex it is. Have you seen? But the moment you learn to walk, you assume that it's nothing, walking is nothing and you're sick of walking, you want to drive a car, you want to ride a motorcycle. But walking is such a complex process, not 14. 1,000 different functions, your knees and your brains and the fluids in your body, all of them are doing all the time. If only you could conduct these things consciously, you would be doing 1,000 things. Anyway, you're doing it. But if you could conduct this consciously, you would do 1,000 things at a time. So I was only talking about different channels of mind, which you don't have to actually conduct, you just have to initiate and leave. It will go on. For you to think about your neighborhood girl, do you have to initiate action every time? No. Once you look at her, it just goes on by itself. Why? Because you're drawn to it. If you are drawn to 10 different things at the same time, mind is capable of creating 10 different channels and keep it running. A complex mathematical problem, a sensation, a music, some raga, this, that, 100 things at the same time, because that is how complex human mind is. This complexity you can use either to drive yourself crazy with unbridled thought and emotion, or if you harness it, it can do things that nobody has imagined possible. It can do things in a miraculous way. You can manifest things in a phenomenal way if the necessary training goes. If somebody is walking there, if you just look at them, how they are walking, you can make out whether they're physically fit or not. Yes or no? Body has been worked upon, you can see it or no, just by the walk. Similarly, whether the mind has been worked upon or not, whether your energies have been worked upon or not, is something that's visible. Most people may not see, but if you pay attention, you will see. Right now, most human beings, the problem is we gave you a super computer. The most sophisticated machine on this planet is this human mechanism. I am asking you, have you read the user's manual? Hello? No. When are you going to read it? On the last day? When I see this ridiculous stuff, people reading Gita when people are dying, I say, you're reading the user's manual on the last day, what's the point? If you buy a phone, should you read the user's manual in the first 3 days or after 3 years when you want to get rid of the phone? Huh? You must read it in the first 3 days. So I'm not asking you to read a scripture. Well, this is a living scripture. Should you not become competent to read this scripture, understand what is the nature of this, what is the full potential of it and explore this? Because this life is not about this or that. This life is about this. There is no choice about this. It is just that you can enslave this life to something else and think it's about that. But actually it's about this. Are you okay with this? You think right now your life is about education. No, your life is about this. You want this one educated, you want this one to do well, you want this one to experience love, you want this one to experience pleasure, you want this one to do all this. All the other things are only attendant things. This is the real thing, isn't it? So if this is the real thing, does this deserve some amount of attention? Some amount of attention means not standing in front of the mirror and attending to your skin endlessly. Should you not pay attention to every dimension of what this human being is made of? What makes this life tick? And how? If you understand what makes it tick, you can make it roar. If you make it roar, why 14 things? You can do many more.
80% of our inner dialogue is negative, and 95% of those thoughts are the same thoughts that we had yesterday. That's what Beth Handel taught me. She's Gary Vee's life coach. We had an awesome session together, and it really hit home. Imagine that 80% of the thoughts that you've got, 80% are negative. We are beating ourselves up. We are telling ourselves that we can't do things. It's not even our friends and family, the people around us telling us that we suck. It's us, it's ourselves. We tell ourselves we're not good enough, we can't do this, we're not strong enough, smart enough, we're from the wrong country, we look the wrong way, you know, we're too young, we're too old. Whatever it is, 80% of our thoughts are negative. And then 95% of those negative thoughts are the exact same negative thoughts that we had yesterday. It's no wonder why we stay small. It's no wonder why we stay stuck, because we've created this reinforcing loop of negativity. This is why I think the world's biggest problem is lack of belief. You know, I'm on a mission every day, wake up, try to make content, try to spread the message to help people believe in themselves more. I think lack of belief is the single biggest problem in the world. And I also believe that everybody has Michael Jordan level genius at something. Like, you are the greatest. You're the greatest in the world at something. And it's not what you went to school for, and it's not what your parents did for a living, probably. It's something completely different. And you have to have the courage to go off and chase it and find it and do it, because the woman who solves cancer
should have already solved it by now, but she never believed in herself enough to go to medical school. And now she's a manager in an accounting firm and she doesn't like her life, right? I mean, this is where most of us are stuck. Most people wake up and they drive to a job that we don't like. Most people are stuck and barely hanging on and do not like their life and feel like they're not contributing, they're not making any kind of difference, they're not doing anything meaningful or impactful at all in the world. That's most people. Like, imagine waking up and that's your daily reality. That may be you. Or that may have been who you were and you're still discovering and trying to improve and get better. But if 80% of those thoughts that come through your head, conscious or unconscious, are negative, I think a lot of conscious thoughts are negative too. Not just the subconscious, the conscious thoughts are negative. You telling yourself that you can't do something and you're not good enough. And then 95% are the same as yesterday, that we've just created this loop, this negative thinking loop. So how do we break it? How do we break free? How do we solve that problem? Well, that's the billion-dollar question, and that's what I wake up every day trying to fix. And I can give you a couple things that I've worked on and I've found helpful and hopefully helps move the needle. They don't have all the answers, but some of these might help. The first one is to change your environment. The environment makes such a huge difference for who you are and your daily habits and what you believe about yourself. And the environment is not just the people who are around you, although that definitely helps. You know, if you've got negative friends or family around you, you want to eliminate them completely or spend a lot less time with them, because it's really, really, really hard to have a beautiful plant grow when it's just, you know, toxic waste being poured on top of them. Doable, but really, really, really difficult. And so changing that can really help. And one of the best ways I found to do it is content. It's content. It's why I make so much content for these channels, that hopefully you wake up today and there's a piece of content there waiting for you, whether it's me or showcasing somebody else. Across all my channels, we're making multiple pieces of content every single day to try to hit it in the right way. Maybe today's message with the right voice is the one that makes a difference for you. And if you can shift the amount of entertainment you're doing, or just shutting off the world, some of the content that you consume just helps you shut off the world and escape, versus educational content that helps you learn, improve, get better, and solve the problem, right? Entertainment is let's forget about the problem and just laugh at something else. Education is let's learn to actually fix the problem that is happening in our life, right? I want to lean in on that a lot more. It doesn't mean that entertainment doesn't exist in your life. It's not only education, but if you can shift the needle towards education, to be around the people who inspire you, even if you've never met them, it can really move the needle for your inner dialogue and your self-confidence. So the thing that saved me in my first business in doing this was modeling Bill Gates from Microsoft. When I quit on my business partner, I struggled. I didn't know, I felt worthless. Nothing was working. I was working every day and just no results. And in looking at Bill Gates' story, that changed my life. It saved my business. It allowed me to keep going, because now I had a little bit of hope that, if Bill Gates could do it, maybe I could too. And the more you surround yourself with those people, the more you'll feel like you can do it too. So do an audit. How many people in your life, the actual humans that you know, and also just the people that you subscribe to, that you follow, how many of them make you feel better about yourself? And for too many people, it's not enough. It's look at who you follow on YouTube, look at who you subscribe to, look at who you're connecting with on Instagram. If you're loading your phone and you're going through Instagram or you're watching YouTube videos, how many times have you gone through it and all of a sudden an hour has gone by and you were mindlessly watching videos, or even worse, made you feel worse about yourself? You ever felt that? You watch a video and then you feel worse about yourself afterwards, or you're following somebody and it makes you feel worse about yourself? You have a choice to unfollow those people. This is not Instagram's fault or YouTube's fault. You can take accountability here. You have a choice to unfollow those people, and then a choice to follow the people who make you feel better about yourself. That's my aim with all these videos. I want to leave you with strategies, but also more belief in yourself at the end of every video. And if I do that, awesome. You want more belief in your life? Come back. Another shot of espresso tomorrow morning. We're here. And if I don't do that, cool. Thank you for giving it a shot. And don't quit on that. Go find somebody else who gives you the motivation, inspiration that you need. And so you can make a conscious choice, because it's so easy to stay stuck. It's so easy to stay small. It's so easy to be the one that pours into other people and not have anybody pour into us. And you need to make a conscious choice to raise your environment, to change your environment. And it doesn't mean you have to go move to a different country or move to a fancier house or anything else. You start by just changing who you associate with, even at a mass scale, right? I've learned a lot from Steve Jobs. I've been inspired by Oprah Winfrey. My favorite entrepreneur of all time is A.P. Giannini, who started Bank of America. These are people who I've never met, you know, and in the case of Jobs and Giannini, I never, will meet because they passed. But I've been inspired by them, and they've made me better, and they've taught me, and I've learned from them, and they've inspired me, and I get courage from them because I've consumed their content. And you can do that too. It's just being intentional about it so that when you raise your environment, you raise your life. The second thing is try not to do it alone. It's really hard to go after a goal, to change your mindset, to accomplish big things when you're doing it all by yourself. This is why a lot of people quit, because you might have one amazing day, or you watch the right video, or you have the right experience, and it's like, "Damn, I want it. This is the life I want." You ever had that, right? Like, this is the life that I want. This is who I want to be. This is where I could go. You have a glimpse of a potential future that you could be. It's like, I want that. And you actually feel in your heart that you can be that. You can accomplish that, right? Has that happened to you? And then what happens? The next day you wake up and it's kind of gone. And then the next day it's completely gone. And then you're back to your old life and the limiting beliefs and the habits. And you gain back the 20 pounds. And like, how did I end up back here? I thought I fixed this, right? Has that ever happened to you? A lot of it is because you're doing it alone. And this took me a long time to figure out. As an introverted person, as a shy person, as somebody who doesn't like asking for help, as someone who's afraid of disappointing people, being a part of a community it just sounds super scary to me. We just did our 7-day challenge for Built to Serve, and a bunch of people joined Movement Makers. We had almost 100 people join Movement Makers at the end of it. And it's people who want to be thought leaders and want to be speakers and authors and coaches and course creators and membership creators and all of this stuff. It's a big impact to spread your message. And I was giving people a lot of not just encouragement, but respect. Like, the people who ended up joining, I just had incredible respect for, because I wouldn't have done it. If I go back to 19-year-old Evan, when I started my first business, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have had the courage to do it. I wouldn't have joined the group. We had people sharing their videos, like, tell us about your who, your why, your how. This methodology from the book, but make a video, sharing your purpose and your biggest pain of all time, and some of these, kind of deep things that you have to record and share. And I mean, it was optional. Not everybody did it, but in doing that, for a lot of people, it was their first video that they've ever done. For a lot of people, it was the first time they've even shared their story to anybody. They were sharing things in the group that they hadn't told their spouse, or their family, or their best friend. And now they're making a video in their car sharing their story. And you see them become liberated. You see them start super scared and afraid and unsure and fixing their hair and, apologizing for the lighting not being good, and then being in the car and not knowing what they're doing, to then just seeing the transformation of somebody going through the cocoon, being a caterpillar and turning into a butterfly and sharing their story for the first time. And I was in awe, because I couldn't imagine me doing that at 19 when I started my first business. I was too afraid to join a community. I was too afraid of being judged. I was too afraid of being not good enough. And that kept me small. It kept my growth really slow. Fortunately, I kept going. If you've seen my chart on my website, where I show how much I've grown every year, over year, over year, over year, where I've been, took 5 years to get to 7,000 subscribers or something like that. And I just kept going. And the one thing that I've got was just tenacity and drive, and I will just keep going in the face of adversity. But I made it just incredibly hard on myself, being alone, not being open to sharing with my friends what I was struggling with, and never joining a community. So I think that can really help you. You know, I think trying to go and change your mindset and accomplish big things that nobody around you has done yet. And there are some days that you feel incredibly inspired and motivated and powerful. It's like, yeah, I can do this. But you're probably not living there most of the time. What if you did? Or what if you lived kind of close to that most of the time? And point number one of raising your environment can definitely help. But point number two is just don't try to do it alone. Even if it's one person. You don't have to join Movement Makers, you don't have to join a group, but even just one person who you can talk to, who you can connect with, who you can, you know, share your stories with, not just complain to, not talk about how hard everything is and just have somebody to vent to, but somebody who supports you. If you had a group of people who supported you, where you felt welcome, where you felt like you weren't alone on this journey, where you felt like people understood you, and were actually genuinely cheering you on to go, you know, become the person that you want to be, everything changes. So raise your environment, get a community, and watch your impact happen.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome.
To see 10 amazing rules from Raul John Dial, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
The way I think habits function, these are my ideas, is that because it's such an energy hog, it wants to be efficient. So this whole myth about you only use 20% of your brain, no, we use 100% of our brain, and pictures show that. But to get